Arkotamayid, this is Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Nun Dalid, and we're holding on Nun Gimel Amid Beis, the final line. Amar Rav, we're in the middle of discussing the Shita of Rav Meir in our Mishnah. Rav Meir in our Mishnah is discussing if someone is Mekadesh and Isha with Hektish. What is the story? And Rav Meir said that there's a chilik between whether it was done ba'ifin shaygig or ba'ifin meizid. If it was done b'shaygig, then it does not work because there is no mi'ilah. The hektish is not deconsecrated and therefore the woman would not be married. If it was done b'meizid, then it would be. Explains the Gemara another way of learning Shitas Rav Meir. Amar Rav, says Rav as we turn over to Dalit Amar Aleph, Chazarnu al kol stadim shel Rav Meir. I researched, I went back and forth. As we know, the Torah is Afachta v'Afachta the Kulei Ba. He went around and he delved deeply looking for what exactly is Pshat with Rav Meir with regard to Me'ilah. And I did not find, says Rav, Hektish b'shaygig in mischal b'meizid mischalel. I don't understand. I did not find anywhere that we have this chilik of Rav Meir that b'shaygig it's not going to be mischal, but b'meizid it will be. Mishnah say no. And what about in our Mishnah? In our Mishnah, that Rav Meir learned that if it was done b'shayig, it doesn't work, is talking about a unique and specific case. Our Mishnah is discussing b'ksoines kehuna, the clothing of a kayin, the ksoines sheloi balu, that was not worn out. So the kayin's clothing was not worn out. He still is able to wear this clothing. So what's unique about this clothing? It's also hektish. Says the Gemara, something unique. The Kayanim are allowed to get benefit from their clothing. Why? Why are they not allowed to get benefit from their clothing? Why don't we say that their clothing is only allowed to be worn while they're doing the Avaida? But the moment that the Avaida is done, they're not allowed to wear their clothing anymore. So anyone that is listening is wondering and saying, well, that's impossible. Because how could you suggest such a thing? Because the moment the Avaida is done, how would they at that split moment change their clothing? That's precisely the reason, says the Gemara. Because the Torah was not given to Malachei Hasharis, therefore the begadim of the Kohen Gadol have a special halacha that there is no din of me'ilah with them. Me'ilah is misusing, abusing, and using hektish properties for the wrong reasons. The clothing of a kohen, because it's impossible, is allowed to be used. So says the Gemara, our Mishnah, which explained that b'shoigig there is no Kiddushin because it's not nischalel, is only if she was mekadesh with which type of hektish? With the clothing of a kohen. And that's going to be a very unique and narrow interpretation of Shitas Rav Meir in the Mishnah. Continues the Gemara, Tashema, 5 lines down. Rav Meir holds that what? If the clothing is worn out, then there is a din me'ilah. So the Gemara suggests a slightly unique suggestion that even though Rav Meir holds that there is me'ilah when they're worn out, my love, perhaps, maybe the same halach would apply even if they're not worn out. And the Gemara says, of course, not loy balu dafka. What exactly is the havamina? We're going to leave for now. Tashema, continues the Gemara, mayalin bechadatin, vein mayalin ba'atik. And this brings us back to Meseches Shkalim, the different shkalim that are collected for different usages in the Beis HaMikdash, the 3 boxes of shkalim which are collected, and we have the new shkalim that were given at the right time. We have the old shkalim which are given past the time. Says the Braisa, the new ones have a din of me'ilah, not the old ones. Rameir Oimer Moilin Af Ba'atikin. Even the old coins have a din me'ila. Why? Shayar Rameir Oimer, because Rameir says, Moilin B'shiyarei Halishka. Rameir holds that there is a me'ila even with the leftover coins of the previous year. If there are extra coins in the Lishka, in the temple, in the Beis HaMikdash treasury, there still is a me'ila on those. Says the Gemara, according to Rameir, in the way that Rav is explaining Rameir, V'amai, what is the reason there is me'ila? Say that what? The reason why there is no me'ila is because you're allowed to get benefit from them. Lefi, what's the reason? The reason is because the Torah was not given to angels. The walls of the Yerushalayim and Migdal and its towers, those were repaired and those were upkept from the coins of the leftover of the Beis HaMikdash. Ditinan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Migdal and all the usages of Yerushalayim, but in Mishar Lishka were used from the Shiar Lishka. So what does this brisa teach us? That when we come to a scenario in which there is something which is impossible to avoid usage, like the walls, you're going to walk in the shade, you're going to be getting benefit from the walls and the towers in Yerushalayim, then what's the halacha? There is no me'ila. So the question is, according to Rav, the halacha should be that the money itself should as well not have a din of me'ila. And yet, what did it say? That there is a din of me'ila. Based on the rules that Rav just set forth, at any time, something like the worn out kaihanim's and clothing is, since you're going to get benefit from them, therefore there's no din of me'ila. There should as well be no din of me'ila on the atikin, on these coins, on the shiarei halishka. Says the Gemara, the teretz that we're going to use a few times today, Loi Tamer Rameir. No, you're right. This isn't Shitas Rameir. Ella Rav Yehuda. Basically, we have to switch up the Raisa, and this is going within Rav Yehuda, not Rameir. If it's Rav Yehuda, then it's not a kasha at all on Rav, because Rav is explaining our Mishnah Shitas Rameir. Tashema, very similar kasha. Then you learned in the Raisa, Rav Yishmael, Bar Rav Yitzchak, Avnei Yerushalayim, the stones of Yerushalayim shenisharu. The stones of Yerushalayim that are detached, Moilin Bahem Divri Rameir, have a din of Me'ilah, the same kasha. Why is there a din of Me'ilah if it's unavoidable to get benefit from them? There should be no Me'ilah, just like the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. Again, our answer is Otim Rameir, Aleima Rav Yehuda. Ask the Gemara, Rav Yehuda, if it's Rav Yehuda, Yerushalayim Makadcha. What's going on? According to Rav Yehuda himself, the Yerushalayim, the entity itself, has no kedusha. V'atanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, ke'imra, ke'dirim, ke'itzim, ke'ishim, ke'echel, ke'mizbeach, ke'Yerushalayim. If someone says that this item should be like a imra, a lamb, a dirim in the closure, eitzim wood, ishim, fires, heichel, the Beis HaMikdash, mizbeach, ke'Yerushalayim. In all of these cases, what does Rav Yehuda learn? Rav Yehuda Omer, kol Omer Yerushalayim loy Omer klum. Is nothing. Because if Yehuda holds that the walls of Yerushalayim have no kedusha. Maybe you're going to quickly suggest Yerushalayim. Maybe they should say Ke. So within the Shitas Rav Yehuda, how can you tell me this is Rav Yehuda? Asks the Gemara. Rav Yehuda holds there is no kedusha inherently to Yerushalayim itself. And we turn over to Nandalam and Beis and answers the Gemara, classically, Trei Tanoi, Va'aliba di Rabbi Yehuda. We have two Tanoim according to Rabbi Yehuda. And we continue. Now we had two ways of learning Shitas Rameir. Today we began with Rav, who explained Shitas Rameir with very narrow glasses that has to be talking about the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. Yesterday we had Rav Yochanan. The way that Rav Yochanan explained Shitas Rameir proves the Gemara today. Nodalim and Beis, we'll call it part 2 of today's shir. Omar Ula Mishmei de Barapada. Uda explains the name of Barpada Oymar Rameir. Rameir said his din, and this is going to prove the shita of Rav Yechlan from yesterday. Hektish b'mezin mischalol b'shoigig ein mischalol. V'loy amru b'shoigig mitchalel. Elo le'inyin carbon bilvad. Only with regard to carbon. Chimiach erdin mischalel. Carbon mamay mechayev. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Of course, this proves Rav Yechanan, as we're not explaining Rav Meir only in the case of worn out clothing of the Kohen Gadol, but rather in all cases. Says the Gemara, but 1 second. If the akdish is not mischala when you use it by accident, why do you need to bring a carbon? Alikiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, Pirush B'Shmein Barpada Omer Rameir, Hektish b'mezin mischalel. B'shogig ein mischalel. V'lo yamru b'shogig mischalel elo le'inyin achila belvad. Only with regard to achila, only if it was used b'shogig with regard to something in the realm of achila, that's when it's not going to be mischalel. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Ada bar Ava. We're about 8 lines down, the Dalam and the Beis. First word on line is Nachman. Explains the Gemara, going back to the Mishnah that we've been discussing, Shitas Rameir. Now says the Gemara, what about the other machlekes in the Mishnah? The machlekes Rameir and Rav Yehuda with regard to being Mekadesh, with Meiser Sheni, and with Hektish. Says the Gemara, Halacha ki Rav Meir ben Meiser. Why? Hayol sasam lantana kavasei. So we're going to have 2 stam mishnayos, as the Gemara will articulate and elaborate on right now, proving Rameir b'maiser and Rav Yehuda b'akdish. Ki Rameir b'maiser ma'i d'tanan, kerem revai. Says the Mishnah, this is going to prove Rameir with regard to Meiser Sheni. Kerem revai, the 4th year of grapes. Beisham yomrim ein loy chaymesh. Says Beis Shammai, there's no din of chaymesh, which is when you redeem your own Meiser Sheni. Ve'ein loy beer, and there's no din of beer, which is you have to get rid of it during the Shemitah year. Beis Hillel Oimrim yesh loy, it has both. Beis Shammai Oimrim yesh lo peret, ve'yesh lo oilos. Continues Beis Shammai with other dinim of grapes. It is the din of peret and oilos, which is peret, which are the grapes that fall off the cluster. Oilos are the underdeveloped grapes. Ubeis Hillel Oimrim kulai legas. Says Beis Hillel, no, all of these grapes, all of it, you don't have to remove those that fell off. You don't have to remove the underdeveloped ones. Rather, you're allowed to take everything. You don't not have to give it to the poor, and you're allowed to use it all to make its wine. My time the Beis Hillel, where the Beis Hillel gets it from? Gamri kodesh mi meiser. Learned it out from Meiser Sheni. Says the Gemara, Ma meiser yesh lo chaymesh yesh lo beer, av kerem rav yesh lo chaymesh yesh lo beer. Ubeis Shammai, he disagrees. Lo gamri kodesh meiser. Ubeis Hillel oimrim ke meiser. Pauses the Gemara and asks, Ubeis Hillel oimrim ke meiser. Come on, Svirlu. Ki Rav Yehuda. But if that's true, amai kuloi legas. Hamar meiser momoin. Hedyitu. Rav Yehuda holds that meiser is momoin hedyit. And therefore, what should happen? It should have a regular din of matnas aniyim, that even the 4th year of these grapes should have the din of peret and oilolais. You have to give it to the poor. Alalav, you're right. We're not going with Shitas Rameir. Alalav kirav meir. Rav Yehuda, Alalav kirav meir. So this is our Stam Mishnah, proving that when it comes to Meiser, we go like Rameir, that the Kerem Ravai, the Hektish, is not considered one's own personal stuff, but rather is considered that it is Mamoin Gavaya. Proof number 1. Continues the Gemara, Ki Rav Yehuda beHektish Mahi. What's the proof like Rav Yehuda by Hektish? Te'tenan, as we learned in the Mishnah. Shilach biyad pikeach. If someone sends Hektish items with a pikeach, our person is the gizbar, he by accident sends money with a pikeach in his card, and he realizes, I sent to that person with Hektish funds, and he remembers before he gets to the chemini, to the money changer. What's the halacha? So halacha is the chemini is mal. Because he, the mishalech, the gizber, knew about it. Since he knew about it, he didn't want it, therefore there's no me'ilah. The chenveni he did not know about, that he's changing hektish money, therefore there is me'ilah. L'chsheyaitze, mo l'chsheyaitze. The chenveni is mayel when he uses the item. So here we have a proof that this is going to be like Rev Yehuda. Why is this a proof? Because even though, so we see over here that the chenveni is Iver Mi'ila when he uses the money, whereas the Gizbar is not. So what do we see? We see that it has to do with using it b'shaygek, which is like Shitas Rav Yehuda, that it does not have to do with kavana or not. Asks the Gemara, so we have the first is Rameir b'maiser, and now we have Rav Yehuda b'hektish. Ask the Gemara, Rav Yehuda b'maiser miloi tanan. Do we not also have a stam mishnah like Rav Yehuda b'maiser? V'tanan. But we have a mishnah in Maiser Sheni. Ha'bayde Maiser Sheni shalai. If someone redeems his own Maiser Sheni, as we learned, Maiser Sheni usually have to bring up and eat in Yerushalayim. So if you redeem it onto money, what's halacha? Maisav chamishi, so you have to add on a fifth. Whether it's his or given to him as a present. Mani, who is this? Mishnah. You allowed to give Maiser Sheni as a present. Vavar Maiser Mama Gavayo. Elalav, rather what must we say? Rav Yehuda. So now we have a problem. Because now we have a Stam Mishnah with regard to Maiser, one Stam Mishnah like Rameir, and another Stam Mishnah like Rav Yehuda. Says Maralai, let them Rameir. And we're discussing over here is that he gave it to him in the state of Tevel. The Kasavar, and this Brishta holds Matana Shleihormu Kamish Shleihormo Damu. That when you give a gift and there was no Meiser separated yet, then it's as if they were already separated, and that's the reason why you're going to be allowed to give it. But it could actually go within Shitas Rameir, even though Rameir holds Meiser Mamun Gavayahu, and therefore we're sticking that when it comes to Meiser, we now have two Stam Mishnayis like Rameir. Tashema, we're going to finish with here one more kasha. If someone redeems his own fourth year grapes, who is this Mishnah? You got to give it as a gift. We just said that we learn out from Meiser, then have to revise the same status, therefore you should not be able to give it as a gift, because according to Rameir, Rav Yehuda. So now kasha that we have a Stam Mishnah like Rav Yehuda with regard to Meiser. And again, you gave it over when it was in the samadar, in the budding stage. Like Rav Yaisi, and it's not like Rav Yaisi who holds the Amar samadar asar misho mimeshu pri. So we're not going with Rav Yaisi. Therefore, we could explain that it's going to be like Rameir, a third Stam Mishnah like Rameir, corroborating that when it comes to Meiser, we indeed go with Rameir, that it's Mamun Gavaya. Stop over here. We'll pick it up from the Tashima the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.